And what's up, you guys? Devin here, coming at you with another video, and today I've had the honor of reviewing the Lumix S9. I've got to spend the week with this. This is a pre-production model, but I've been loving it so far. We're gonna do like a quick overview, using it for a week, just kind of like what I love about it, what I don't like about it, who it's for, just kind of that. So let's get into it. Before we get started, I do want to thank Lumix. They did fly me out to Japan with a bunch of other creators to see the release of this camera, and I just got to run around Osaka, Japan, try this out as a street photography camera and shoot some video with it. And there's a lot of things I love about this. This is actually a camera I really have been hoping we would get for a while now. I don't have like a little everyday camera outside of just my phone that was like this kind of small form factor. Just a quick overview of this camera. So we have a full frame sensor, the same sensor we'll find in the S5 II and the S5 IIX. Now, since it has that same sensor as the S5 II and the S5 IIX, the image quality on this thing is superb. Now, the way it approaches getting the images is a little different. We don't have any fans, we don't have giant heat dissipation. We don't have the same kind of like build on this. This is a much smaller form factor. It's a lot easier just to throw in your pocket and take with you to go. Now, of course, that's gonna come with some pros and cons, which we'll go over in this video. The first thing I wanna go over is the color and the size. This is gonna be one of the smallest full frame L-mount cameras next to the Sigma FP, which does cut down the size a little bit. But this has so many more useful features. We have the phase detect autofocus in here. We have 6K open gate inside this small body. In fact, we have pretty much every feature that the S5 II has, just kind of watered down a little bit just due to limitations of the size. Now, I've chose to go with the green color here. I tried the blue one out for a while, and the green kind of just kept calling my name, so I switched to green. The black also looks very good, looks very small, looks very stealthy. And then it comes in a red as well, which is just kind of like the loudest color of the bunch. But aside from the obvious, like the size and the color, let me talk about some of the things that separates this camera from the rest of the lineup and kind of where it sits in the lineup. We're going to talk about some unique features that this camera has at launch that the other cameras don't. One of those features being a mode called Hyper Zoom. Now, Hyper Zoom on paper doesn't seem like that big of a deal. It didn't seem that impressive to me right when I heard it, because essentially what it is it will add up to a 3 times additional zoom onto whatever lens you have it on. So, for example, if you have a 28-200, the 28-200 when you're zooming in is going to act like a 28-600, which is kind of insane. Now, it's doing this by cropping in the image. So if you're taking photo, if you're zooming all the way out to 600, you're actually gonna be getting a 2 megapixel image. Now, there is some sharpening, I believe, that's going on in camera to make that image a lot more like just usable, which I probably wouldn't do anything like print with it. But if you're just trying to make stuff for social media and you're just posting to social media, 2 megapixels looks really good. I'll throw up some images I kind of took of like street photography, where I'm just kind of shooting the city of Osaka with a 28mm and then zooming in all the way to the moon at 600mm and getting a pretty sharp, nice, usable image. It's kind of insane. You can do this in video as well, where in photo it's taking a 24 megapixel image and cropping it down to a 2 megapixel image. In video, it's going to start off at 6K and then kind of go all the way into 1080p, which just made me want to get a lot more stuff correct in camera, which is kind of the hallmark of this camera and what it does. It's wanting you to just kind of bake in LUTs. It's wanting you to get stuff done right then and there. It's a camera that really just wants to take all the work out of post, which is why I think it's going to be heavily marketed towards beginners. So in this camera, we also have a new codec. We have all the codecs you're going to be familiar with in the S5 II, such as all the MOV codecs, all the way up to 6K open gate, even 48 frames a second in Cinema 4K and 4K, 120 frames a second in full HD. We have all the MP4 formats and all those 8-bit codecs, but we have a brand new MP4 Lite. Now, this is limited to 3.8K, but it is an open gate format, so you can get your vertical or your horizontal video out of it. It's only 50 megabits and it's locked at 30 frames, but it is in 10-bit, which is really cool. This would be a really good format if you're wanting to edit stuff on your phone, or if you just have an older computer and you need to get some stuff done, or you just have this extra little format to shoot in. I shot in it a lot just because I'm curious on how light it is and how the image looks. All the video that I'm showing you from this camera on screen has been shot in that low bitrate format, We all know what the S5 II and the S5 IIX look like at this point, so I really wanted to shoot most of my video with that light format to see what it looks like. Because of the natural compression of YouTube, I have a feeling the MP4 format's going to look pretty good and almost indistinguishable from the other formats. Now, it is important to keep in mind this isn't marketed to professional videographers, though it does just have a lot of professional codecs in it, which is just cool. It's kind of just like GIVME's. But anything you shoot in 1080p is going to be locked at 20 minutes. That includes the full HD 120. Anything you shoot in 4K or Cinema 4K is going to be locked to 15 minutes, and anything you shoot in 6K is going to be locked to 10 minutes. And that MP4 Lite, because it is technically a 4K, it's going to be locked at 15 minutes as well. So we're not going to be doing any long form interviews with this unless we're going to be stopping and going a lot, though in a pinch could do it if you need it as a third or fourth angle, right? The next thing we're going to be going over is this real-time LUT button right at the top here. So while the button just lets you cycle through your LUTs very, very quickly, and I must say it was fun just taking all the like perfectionism out of everything and pop, this is a good look. You can preload 39 different looks into this camera. Once again, kind of just pushing people in the direction of, hey, create everything in camera, keep all your looks in camera. And we have some extra features with that as well. You can now change the intensity of a LUT on an image. And so if you find a LUT's coming on a little too strong, or you want to overlay it over a natural profile or a Cine D profile, you can dial that back a bit. You also have the ability to use two LUTs at one time. So if you wanted to put on a Rec 709 LUT and then put on kind of a special colorized LUT, you can do that in camera. Really awesome. You can also load LUTs onto this camera without a computer. You can do it just with your smartphone. With the launch of this camera, they are also going to be launching the Lumix Lab app. The Lumix Lab app is going to eventually in time replace the Lumix Tether app. The Lumix Lab app is still a work in progress, so we can't do all the controls just yet, but I'm loving the direction it's going. I can tell just by clicking on it, it's built on a platform that's going to have a really seamless transition as it gets more developed and more work's put into it. Within the app, it's really, really clean and cool. You can just connect to your camera via Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. You can transfer your images or videos from the camera straight to your phone. They also have a creator page on the app where you can browse other Lumix creators, such as myself, and look at LUTs that we've made and download them straight onto your camera in one of the slots and start combining them and mixing them together, putting them over footage, changing the intensity. Really cool stuff like that. I can really tell just by messing with it for a little while, like the ceiling of where this app can go versus the Tether app is much, much higher. Also, with the launch of this camera, they're also going to be launching and giving away for free with pre-orders this 26mm f8. This lens is kind of a body cap lens. It's made of plastic, it's very light. I can definitely tell its existence is to give the camera an option to just have this like really sleek profile and not weigh a lot. There's no autofocus motor in it, though it is a constant f8, so it's really easy just to do the manual focus ring on here. It's kind of nice because if you were doing landscapes or street photography, I am usually shooting at an f6, f7, f8, sometimes f10, f12, just because I want more in focus if I'm doing landscape photography. But it's oddly very sharp for being something that's just gonna kind of launch as an option to get with pre-order for this camera, or being something you can pick up for kind of on the cheaper end, just to get this feel and keep the weight down. This is really awesome. Like, if you ever break down your rigs like I do, to where like I don't even travel with the lenses attached to the bodies, it's gonna be really cool just to have this on there. And if I just see something really quick, like, oh, I wanna get this, this is just on there, ready to go. It's not causing any weight, there's no play in it. It's just a killer size and profile. Do I wish it was a faster aperture, or do we have a faster option? Of course I do. I wouldn't want to be stuck at f8, but the images you're seeing on the screen while I've just been kind of talking here, these were all done with this lens. It's oddly pretty sharp for its price and what it is. But there's not too much to say about it other than that. Here I'm doing a vlog test on the Lumix S9. I'm using the 18mm for this. Autofocus is on, and I'm just on like the little small tiny Manfrotto Extreme tripod because this doesn't weigh anything. I feel like I could do this all day. I'm at f2.5. I'm shooting in the MP4 Lite codec at 30 frames a second, and I'm just using the good old natural profile. I'm gonna throw a LUT on here so you can kind of see how the camera reacts when it has a real-time LUT thrown onto the vlog footage in this profile. Don't forget, this is still 10 bits, so we'll have lots of latitude. And I'm also gonna throw on the extra high image stabilization, and we'll run around and stuff and see how stable it can be. All right, here we are with the image stabilization on high with the real-time LUT applied. Won't be color grading anything in post because this look is already pretty stylized. And this is just me walking, not really trying to hold up the camera very well or anything like that. Let me straighten this out a little bit. There we go. Autofocus is on tracking. I'm shooting at f2.5, but let's make this a little harder for the camera. Let's go all the way down to 1.8. Readjust exposure a little bit. There we go. All right, so now we're shooting at 1.8. We do have a bit of a crop when we do the high electronic e-stabilization. It almost goes to APS-C, I will say, but we're at 18 mil, so completely fine. And now I'm gonna run. And when I'm running like this, I'm not trying to hold it steady at all. I'm letting my arm kind of bounce around a good bit. So, yeah. Go up this hill and down this hill. In the soccer field now. All right. Go back up the hill. So I wasn't being kind to the image stabilization. So any smoothing out you see, any stability, that's just how impressive this system is getting. And now to kind of close out this video, we're gonna start off with some ending thoughts. First of all, why I love it. As you can see, I just took it out my jacket pocket. That's one of the reasons I love it. Selfishly, this feels like it was made for me. I have 4 professional cameras and I love the images coming out of this camera, and I like having a camera with me all the time, though I have 2 kids now, and sometimes I'm running out the house and I don't want to have to bring even something the size of an S5 2X with a prime on it, or even the size of something like a G9 II with a prime on it. Like, even that's still too bulky. This is amazing. This is literally giving me like 90% of what my S5 II offers me in a package this size. So I'm gonna really be able to grab content all the time. If I'm ever in a pinch and like I've packed up all my gear, this is always gonna be on my body. And so even for professional shoots, this kind of has a place for me, because if all my gear is packed up and I see something I need to get, or we need to grab a quick clip, this is just in my pocket, ready to go. Like that. That's why I love it. When I was in Japan, in Osaka, with all these other creators, I guarantee you I could ask each one of those creators, they probably shot more because they had this thing. A lot of us there are used to carrying these big rigs and having all our settings dialed in. And this camera kind of invited us to just let go and just start shooting because we like it, shooting things because they were beautiful, and not getting so like hammered down in the technical side of this. I love that I'm not giving up my IBIS. I mean, let alone throwing this on a gimbal, almost don't need to. I can hold this so steady, and the IBIS in here is just the best in class, and so it looks like a gimbal in my hands. I also love the color. I love that we got like fun colors to choose from. I'll throw them up on the screen once again just so you can kind of see them, but it's nice just to mix up the black a little bit, though the black was so close to getting it just because it looks so stealthy. It's so classy, right? Now, what do I wish was different about this camera? The button layout slightly. There's a lot of unused space on the back of the camera right here, and I feel like there could have just been an EVF or some extra custom buttons, something like this. We have this little tiny wheel at the top. Right here, we do have the nice little thumb grip, so we don't have to add one via cold shoe. This does feel really good, by the way, like this. With this lens, the second we put a bigger lens on here, which I'm often putting the 28-200 because of the hyper zoom feature, you will probably want to get you a little extra grip. My hands dance around this thing really easily, but I've got really like thin fingers. People with bulkier hands are probably going to have a harder time like managing the smaller scroll wheel, the like more compact buttons. I know Small Rig, Suray, a couple other companies are going to be making grips whenever this launches, so you can kind of screw into the bottom plate here and get this extra grip and this extra place to rest your pinky. That's going to make the shooting experience a lot easier. I do wish we had a scroll wheel right here, like one right here and one in the front, or one at the top, or we could keep this one at the top and have one in the front right here. I know a lot of other companies have done that, like kind of where the logo is. That would have been nice. I would have liked the EVF, even if it was like lower resolution. It wasn't like, you know, the top class EVF, even just like a little tiny one would have been amazing. It would have been nice to have a hot shoe, because we could have put an EVF on here after the fact that it's a cold shoe, so we don't have that option either. That's a little bit of an oversight to me. I wish that was different. Sure, I would love to have no record time limits, but that doesn't really bother me because I know that's not really how I plan on using this camera, nor who's it for. Even though this kept the size down, I wish we just had the bulkier scroll wheel. I do have a pre-production model, so this may be fixed, but I've had a little bit of float on here where if I'm like almost not even pushing it like a button, like just a little bit of pressure from my finger, it almost like like I thought it was a touch button for a little while, because in the menu system it kind of floated left and right. There's a mini HDMI, which I don't know if any of us are going to use. I don't have one of these cables. I don't plan on getting one of these cables. I guess it's cool that it's there for people who are going to want to try to like rig this up just for the sake of doing it. And I wish it had a mechanical shutter. Mechanical shutter, EVF hot shoe. This would have been my dream camera. It's so close to being my dream camera. Now, who do I think this camera's for? 3 types of people. If you're wanting to get into photography or content creation or start a YouTube channel or anything like that, and you're wanting to go with like on the higher end of the power side, but not super commit to these big bulky things, this is a great place to start, especially if you don't think you're gonna like dive straight into hyper professional settings. Like I said, this has a lot of the power and capability of the S5 II, so it has a lot of professional features and codecs in here. If you think you're going to get into professional work, where you're doing weddings or you're doing client work, just get an S5 II. This is going to be priced pretty close to an S5 II, and the S5 II is just going to give you a lot more headroom. Though if this is more something for yourself and kind of wanting to do like YouTube on the side, or start up a YouTube channel, or start up something like this, I could totally see going with this, because it's going to give you the flip out screen. It's going to give you like full frame, beautiful blurry backgrounds, give you a lot of latitude, and it's got a lot of features to kind of like not have to do too much work in post. Even if you have like a smaller, weaker laptop, you have like the nice little weaker codecs to kind of like perform in here. But for a few $100 extra, you can get you an S5 II, maybe even an S5 IIX, and then you just have a lot of headroom as far as like the workflows you could fit in and things you can do. Second person I think this is for is a street photographer who wants to get into the L mount and wants to get into full frame and wants to keep the form factor small. Doesn't really like Sony, kind of likes the colors and the options Panasonic has. I mean, you know, this kind of looks like a Q2, although a Leica Q2 is much more flushed out. It's also like $4,000 or $5,000, which is going to be much more expensive than what this is priced at on launch at $1,500. And the third person is going to be, well, people like me. I have an S5 II, I have an S5 IIX, I have a G9 II, I have an S5. I have a fleet of cameras for professional work already, and I love the look out of them, but I just want a smaller version to carry with me. And honestly, I would have took like a Micro Four Thirds point and shoot just with phase detect in it, a couple of features, but this like hits a home run for me. Like, this is exactly what I was looking to purchase if it got released. Something that gives me nearly all the power of those other bodies, but just gives me this small form factor that I can, you know, run around with my kids with, and in a pinch on client shoots, hurry up and get some quick behind the scenes with. Like, this is amazing for that, and I love it. So at launch, this camera is going to be $1,500, and God, it's a confusing camera to price, because that seems very steep. Because for a few $100 more, you can get an S5 II, which is so much more power. Like I said, if you're going towards professional work, or you think you're gonna move in that direction, just get an S5 II, not this. But I don't think that's who this camera's aimed for. I think it's aimed for more people like me, or more people who are not trying to get into hyper professional work. And professional work's really weird, because the definition of professional work is literally just making money doing the thing. And if I was getting into senior portraits or family portraits, and I'm using like golden hour in the morning or at night, or just doing daylight shoots or street photography or wanting to do prints with that, I mean, even like little quick commercials for social, like this is gonna kill it for that. It's just when you're getting into like the long form interviews and using flash and like dealing with trickier lighting situations, that's where you're gonna want the headroom of those other cameras. And so it's like, yeah, don't start off with this one. But it definitely wouldn't get discouraged if you started off with this and you wanted to get into professional work, because I could totally make money using this camera. However, that is a launch price, and you know, as time goes on, you'll see price jumps. They can never continue to go up on the price of these things. These things are only gonna come down in price. So this might end up floating around $1,000, $1,200, in which case it's sitting right there next to the Fuji X100VI and the X100V. It's cheaper than a Sony ZV-E1. And so it is, even at launch, fairly priced, especially if you pre-order, you're gonna get this little 26mm f8 with it. So it's a complete little package. But it's one of those things where you have a lot of foresight of what the future is going to hold for you, and you know you're going to get into more professional work and you need more of a professional camera, then just throw a couple extra $100 and get you an S5 too. Also, a little bit of X factor with that hyper zoom feature. I'd love to see the hyper zoom feature come to the other cameras. I think it totally has the capability because it's a software feature. But if you're starting out, one of the things I always tell people when starting out is get you a zoom lens that has a wide range so you can figure out what focal lengths you like and which ones kind of speak to you and where your eye like performs the best. And if you get a 28 to 200mm with this guy, it's a 28 to 600mm. And like, so what a amount of headroom to learn who you are. If you learn that you love wildlife or concert photography at festivals, or if you like street photography or you like wider angles, like it becomes a lot more valuable just in that thought process. But yeah, those are my thoughts after having this camera for a week. I want to like thank Lumix for letting me go out to Osaka, Japan for the launch of this thing. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. Those are my first impressions after a week of shooting with this pre-production model. I love it. Of course, there's some cons. There always is. I can already see the comment section in a lot of the groups I'm in. They're going to be very salty about the video capabilities of this. This isn't for you. This is not the camera they released for the people waiting for the S1H2 or some like predecessor to that. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but I have a feeling we have some more releases coming down the pipe. I just got that vibe. And so maybe soon you guys will get your camera, but in the meantime, this one's mine. Thanks for sticking with me through the end. I hope this was informative. Hit the like button if you like this video. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Bell notification to get more content on this. If you have any questions, leave the comments down below. I can make a follow-up video after I have a longer time with this guy. But in the meantime, I'm gonna go keep enjoying it. You guys have a good day. Peace.
I thought about it.
What you think about the camera?
I thought about it. They had a lot of bucket kids.
It's cute. It's so small.